What's up, everybody? My name is Joe Brown. This is the Heresy Financial Show, and it seems like every day when we wake up and look at the news, we see yet another shortage going on. And today's turn is diesel. It's like Oprah Winfrey is running the economy now. You get a shortage. You get a shortage. Everybody gets a shortage. And anybody right now that has a diesel truck, a semi-truck, a tractor, basically the entire economy runs on diesel. And as if that wasn't enough, we are also starting to see a shortage pop up with D.E.F. That's D.E.F. That is a fluid that pretty much everything that runs on diesel needs in order to run. So we are going to talk about that today. Ready? Let's dive in. Depending on how often you drive, you are probably getting hit every single week or at least every single month when you drive up to the gas station, you fill up at the pump, and you get sticker shock, sometimes even maxing out how much you are able to put in your car based on the automatic cutoff limit there, and watching and wondering how high can gas prices get? How much will Americans be able to take before they just can't pay it anymore? Because fuel, gasoline, diesel, these are things that are typically considered inelastic demand. That means for things like handbags and computers and luxuries and most electronics and things that people don't necessarily need, these are things that have elastic demand, meaning if people don't have the money for them, they're going to stop buying them. But things like your rent, your car payment, energy costs, food, these are things that typically people will buy even if they can't afford it. These are the last things people stop buying when times get tough. But it only can go so far. You can only stretch Americans' pocketbooks so far. I recently made a video about the savings rate plummeting, the debt skyrocketing to all-time highs. You can only stretch that so far before people literally just can't afford it. So most Americans are feeling the pain of gasoline, but what most Americans are not paying attention to is the fallout that will happen as a result of diesel prices, because the entire country runs on diesel. Take a look with me at the price right now of diesel in the US on highway diesel fuel prices. This is EIA.gov. We can see that in May they were at $5.57 up till just this week in June up to $5.70, and a year ago they are up $2.43 on average from just 1 year ago. And in fact, diesel prices have never been this high in history. And at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, well, I don't drive a Ram 2500. I drive a Honda Civic. So yes, gas prices are hurting me right now, but sucks to suck for somebody who decided to buy a big truck. Not so fast, because it's not just the people you see who are driving a large diesel truck around town that this is impacting. Like I said earlier, diesel is what America runs on. So every semi-truck that delivers all the stuff from where it's made to where it's bought, including all of the food. And now that you mention food, every tractor, every boat that takes stuff around the ocean that you and I buy, our imports, that's where we get most of our stuff. It all runs on diesel. And keep in mind, this isn't just transportation for the end product, because for that end product to get produced, a lot of materials have to be transported from where those materials come from. So you have things moving from place to place to place to place to place before you ever get to that final end product that you and I will buy at the store. And because retailers don't like passing on these costs to consumers because it hurts demand, they're pushing back and trying to pay truck drivers less. But as this article from Time points out, that this might deter owner-operators from driving as many loads. Because obviously, if you're not getting paid as much to haul a load, there's no reason to run that load. So transportation of all of the stuff that's used to make all of the stuff that you and I need is getting hit hard by these diesel prices going up. But we have to take another look at food, because it's not just the gas pump that's hurting Americans, it's filling up that gas, driving over to the grocery store, and then the sticker shock of all of the food that we have to buy to survive. Those prices are going up, potentially in some places even more. For some farmers, it is costing over $1,000 an acre to grow corn, up from $450 just the past few years. tires, because you need diesel to run your tractors. You also need fertilizer, which many times, especially nitrogen-based fertilizer, it all comes from the same source, oil. And now that you mention oil, another byproduct of that is tires. And what is used on tractors? Tires. And tires have doubled in price. Now, you might be wondering, why in the world is this supply and demand mismatch getting hit so hard right now? And yes, a big part of it is the money printing, a big part of it is the lockdowns, a big part of it is the supply chains, a big part of it is Russia invading Ukraine. But another part of it that most mainstream media loves to ignore is regulation. There are far fewer refineries today than there used to be. In fact, there are only half as many today as there were just in 1980. And the refineries that the United States does have, some of them are not even shipping all of the diesel to the United States. Some of them are sending them south to South America. This is because they don't have to meet renewable fuel standard requirements on the fuel they send to South America. So the fuel still works, but because of regulations, they're not sending it here. They're not selling it to us. They're making it cheaper and they're selling it to South America, who doesn't care about those things. Now, at this point, you also might be asking, well, how much of an impact could that make? And this is where we need to talk about D.E.F, diesel exhaust fluid. Diesel exhaust fluid is a fluid that you have to use in diesel engines in order to combat emissions. This fluid is mandated for use in many diesels to aid in the reduction of nitrous oxides. So in a very basic explanation, here's how this works. The diesel engine will work by itself, but because of regulations and because of what's in the exhaust, regulations say, hey, we need to do something about that exhaust. So there is a mechanism by which you use D.E.F, D.E.F, and it has something called urea in it. And so they mix this urea. There's a chemical reaction that goes on that takes part in this whole engine process to reduce some of the harmful emissions that come out of the exhaust for the diesel. But guess what? This is something that's added on to the diesel engine. You don't need that. In fact, up until 2013, in many states, you didn't have to have this at all. So if you get a diesel truck that's made in 2014 or later, you do have to add D.E.F to it. If you have a truck from 2013 or earlier, you don't. But because of how intertwined the system is, you can't just ignore the law and not put the D.E.F into your truck if it needs it. If you don't do it, it can ruin your engine. And as if the diesel price is going up and the diesel shortages wasn't enough, we are now starting to see a shortage pop up with D.E.F. So why are there shortages with D.E.F right now? Well, it comes down to the main ingredient, urea. Now, if you know anything about urea, you know that it's a major player in the creation of fertilizer as well, which we are currently also having a shortage of due to the production of fertilizer. And for all the same reasons that we are having a shortage in fertilizer, we're having a shortage in D.E.F now as a result. Now, this could result in many individuals doing what's called a delete on their diesel truck, but that comes with its own complications because number one, it's illegal. Number two, if you don't do it right, you can actually turn your truck into a giant paperweight because like I said earlier, all these systems are so intertwined that if you have somebody do it that doesn't know what they're doing, then you could shut off a major system that shouldn't be shut off when you're trying to just get rid of the necessity to use D.E.F. And even if most individuals who own large trucks can do this, it's not a solution for ships, it's not a solution for semi-trucks, it's not a solution for tractors. You are not going to be able to solve this problem by everybody trying to skirt around these regulations. The very fact that these regulations exist has planted the seeds for these major problems to crop up. And if those regulations would have just never happened and people were left freely able to choose to do what they wanted to do and freely associate with who they wanted to associate with and do business with who they wanted to do business with, we wouldn't have had such a fragile system where one thing failing leads to another thing failing, leads to another thing failing, and this cascading fragile system that can all get knocked over like dominoes. Now, if we're looking for some silver lining, which it's really not silver lining, but but it's just kind of looking at when this will end. It will end with demand destruction. So when prices get too high to a point where people just can't afford it anymore, demand drops off of a cliff, and then you get a deflationary crash right after all of that inflation, that fake boom. And then that deflationary crash will bring prices all the way back down and fix some of the shortages. But for now, it looks like we have more pain ahead of us, as there are many issues leading to these things where food prices are going up because diesel prices are going up, because the refineries can't refine and produce as much, because oil prices are going up and supply chains. It all feeds in on itself. That's what happens when you create a complex system, try and control it from the top down. Errors are made, and then you have a cascading positive feedback loop of negative results. Those Teslas are looking pretty good right now, aren't they? As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.